Good evening, this is the Oscar expert here with Brother Bro. We're going to review Ford v Ferrari, the new Oscar contender from James Mangold, starring Matt Damon and Christian Bale. You will learn that racing is not just driving cars in this movie. It is this really interesting mix of the mechanics of the vehicle and then the driver's ability to harness that, much like riding an animal or something. The driver can sense how hungry the animal is, whether each of its legs are working properly, whether it has a torn ligament in the back right leg. That is how you come to understand racing. I don't care about racing personally, but now after this movie I can have a deeper appreciation for this. The movie really dives deep into what it means to be passionate about this thing, and it makes you feel that passion. That's what this movie's really all about, is this spirit, the down and dirty of racing. Rugged, rustic, other, words that sound with R, it evokes that. Vroom, 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 lots of R's. Ford, Ferrari, you can go on. Round and round the racetrack. It just does a good job of making you care about the sport and the spirit of racing, and it's absolutely grueling. I mean, they're racing 24 hours in the night and the dark, and they don't even sleep. It makes for thrilling blockbuster Hollywood entertainment. These CGI bloated films just can't even compete. That's kind of what people are saying, and I also agree. What's not to like here, really?
I don't know what's not to like, Cole.
You could be,
really nothing
bitter, and you could say that, oh, this movie's not really crazy deep. You're gonna go watch this movie. You're gonna have a fun time. You're gonna be more invested than you ever have been in racing. And you're going to appreciate the technical craft and Christian Bale's performance.
I felt that there were some emotional stakes here from, me.
Well, sure.
And it has that ending where I think, it could get a couple sniffles from your audience even.
Absolutely. It just wins you over. And I think a lot of that, for me was due to Christian Bale. All those great things that you were saying earlier about feeling the race car and knowing the mechanics of how it works, and then the spirit, everything is through Christian Bale's character, Ken Miles. Bale is having a blast in this role. We don't always see Christian Bale have a blast. The last we saw of him was playing Dick Cheney in Vice. This is entirely different.
You can't imagine he was having too much of a blast in all that, makeup.
It would have been absolutely fraudulent if Christian Bale was campaigning supporting. Thank God he's lead, because he totally is. He's got a wife and he's got a kid. Matt Damon doesn't have a wife and a kid. I couldn't imagine liking the movie as much if we didn't have an actor who was at once, so dedicated and charismatic, and also feels like he understands the role so deeply.
I do think you're downplaying Matt Damon's character.
Well, I wouldn't
and how that is also a really enjoyable performance. Especially towards the end, has some really good scenes that make you realize, oh my God, Damon, he is a great actor. This movie is not giving him all the range that he has, but he is a great actor, and he really does make an impact on the film. But I agree, Bale's performance is what stands out. His character is the heart and soul of it. He gets into a character here that's not a typical method of performance where it's completely transformed, but he manages to transform nonetheless. And he manages to get into that character just like he'd get into any character.
Tracy Letts is also giving a great supporting performance.
Yeah, he has a scene that's stunning where you're he's not acting. He's not acting.
He's such a dominant presence. He likes to sit in ways and not look at you, and he'll just hang out.
I thought that was almost
no, I loved the physicalness of the performance, and I also liked this sort of self-aware expression on his face the whole time.
That was the whole thing. Was
he
has a wry smile behind his facade. A lot of this movie is by the numbers, and it took me 10 minutes to actually start really liking the movie, because for a while I was oh no, this is really painting by the numbers here. Once I got into the movie and I felt like I connected with the the character's passion for racing, then I was won over. It doesn't try to become an art film. You can't really expect that from the movie. This is a crowd pleaser through and through.
I was maybe thinking oh, is this gonna really dive into what it means to be behind the wheel?
There was maybe one speech about being behind the wheel and what it means to drive down a road. Maybe one.
It doesn't resonate in that kind of way, but what resonates is just the spirit of it. And if you're an athlete or somebody who's just crazy passionate like Christian Bale, you don't necessarily need this crazy justification for it. Like, it just is the excitement and the feeling, and this movie captures that, and it gives you all you need for that. The racing scenes are spectacular. James Mangold is very creative with finding new ways to film each piece of the race. And you get that need for speed too. You know, the camera's racing just as fast as the car is likely attached to a car. The racing scenes also really work because you're paying attention to little details about like what's going on in the race and, you know, what is Ken Miles focused on in this moment. So you're not just like, oh my god, this car's gaining on the other. It's like, it's not boring like that. You know, it's like, how is he gonna like get the guy on this turn? There's so much happening and it's so stimulating. The editing, cinematography. I thought this movie from a technical standpoint was excellent, and you're gonna see it get some nominations.
The attention to detail and like getting racing right feels like it's the main preoccupation for the director, and it really pays off. I mean, that's what makes this movie special, I think, is like they seem to get all the details about like every aspect of like being in the race and then being part of the cockpit in the race. Like they get it all right. If I couldn't tell if there was any CGI at all, and I never felt like I was watching some like scene that was cobbled together by computers, and it really makes a giant difference. Editing and cinematography, like it's all there. It's not doing anything new or extraordinary, I would say. The director, James Mangold, is very like more than competent at like making movies like this, and Hollywood is going to want him for like every movie they have coming up that they want to be a success. You're going to go over to your uncle's house for Thanksgiving like 5 years from now, and they're going to have Ford v Ferrari playing in like the living room.
It's the rousing crowd pleaser that gets in at the Oscars like Bohemian Rhapsody, but it doesn't have that critic divide that made that film's inclusion so controversial. Everybody can agree that this is, you know, a movie that's worthy of being in the conversation for the most part.
If the Oscars don't nominate this movie, I'll be shocked and also kind of dismayed. Like, why wouldn't you nominate that film? The Oscars are kind of supposed to nominate those movies that can appeal to critics and general audiences, and this film is definitely worthy of that. It's a freaking lock for Best Picture.
Absolutely.
It's a top
not a question
contender, like maybe even top 5.
Don't doubt it anymore, folks. People were doubting it. People are still doubting it. I mean,
I don't know why people are so slow to catch on to this movie.
It's Best Director. Like, if it happens at the Golden Globes, then we will see. I came away from this thinking like Christian Bale is a threat to all these big actor contenders. Like, he is among them.
I don't think he's in the outside. I think we have this pack and we don't know what's going to happen. We don't know if it's going to come out where Christian Bale is like a lock or whether he's sort of fighting for a position. In some ways, it's hard to see it not getting in, but it's such a crowded race.
Like, you know, when Denzel Washington got nominated for like Roman J. Israel Esquire, like that wouldn't have happened if Christian Bale was like...
This is not like Christian Bale's best performance, but it's a Christian Bale performance that doesn't disappoint. So that should say enough for you.
And it's unique. It's a new flavor of performance from him. It just adds to the variety that he's given us over the decade.
Yeah, it's a good addition to the Bale canon.
Editing, like, totally a lock. Sound awards, totally in there. Editing's going to The Irishman, and the sounds, it's going to have a hard time beating 1917.
We'll see. Even if it's not the front runner, it could steal in those categories.
I was thoroughly impressed with the cinematography in the film. I was impressed with how colorful it was. The nighttime scenes looked really good, and the scenes in the rain, the racing scenes looked excellent.
I'm kind of indifferent as to whether it gets in or not, but do I think it will get in? I honestly don't know. I'd have it at like 5 or 6 probably, just considering like the field as it is.
I've heard a lot of buzz for the score, but I didn't personally come away like, oh, that should get nominated for score.
Yeah.
I actually don't really care that much about the score. The score was fine to me.
There were definitely moments where it was unique. It was playing with genres. It wasn't just like a typical strings orchestra score, which I really appreciated. There's a lot of percussion, some like drum kit. Occasionally, like, saxophone would be in there. So, yeah, again, it, like, kind of puts me on the fringe. I'm not really sure if this movie will get into score or not.
The hype's been a little more muted for this one, but I saw some production design potential here, too.
The movie could easily steal a SAG Ensemble nomination.
Yeah, you might not see it right now, but it just could be one of those movies that's so beloved that it just gets in, which actually does happen at the SAGs. They don't always nominate things.
They nominated Bohemian Rhapsody for a SAG Ensemble nomination, which was completely unjustified.
I will say, the ensemble was very good. And, you know, beyond Damon, Bale, and Tracy Letts, there are a couple good performances scattered throughout.
We also just need to mention this overperformed opening weekend. It has an 8.3 on IMDb. That means people are eating it up in exactly the way they should. And had an A+ cinema score. All signs are pointing towards Oscar, and it's only getting more and more hype.
I don't really have much to complain about, but it's not like necessarily a movie that's gonna like stick with me or like hit deep. It was excellent for what it was. And for that, I will grant it a 9 out of 10.
Grant it.
Granted a 9 out of 10.
From your high and mighty chair. Yeah, I mean, the movie works extremely well as what it is. It might not go into like the above and beyond that would make like me give it like my personal 10 out of 10, but it's an easy solid 9 out of 10.
Thank you for watching, and thank you for subscribing.
Do you like to race? And what do you race when you race?